Let me write an immersive, descriptive narration about these 3 tree cabins like a narrator describing them, perhaps for a documentary, audiobook, or guided experience. I'll write it in a flowing, narrative style with ellipses for breathing pauses. Somewhere deep in the oldest forests of the world, where the light barely touches the ground and the air carries the weight of centuries, there are places that do not appear on any map, places that were not built so much as they were discovered, grown into, breathed into existence by the trees themselves. These are not hotels. They are not retreats in any ordinary sense of the word. They are sanctuaries, each one alive, each one breathing alongside the tree that holds it, and each one created for a different kind of soul. There are 3 of them. 3 cabins, 3 worlds, 3 entirely different ways of becoming part of something ancient and enormous. And if you are willing to listen, I will take you to each one. The first begins with a climb. Not a staircase in any traditional sense, but a series of platforms that spiral upward through a sequoia so old that its lowest branches are wider than most roads. The kind of tree that makes you stop at its base and simply look up, and keep looking, until your neck aches and your eyes lose focus in the canopy far above. This is where the observatory cabin lives. You reach it after what feels like ascending through weather itself, because the atmosphere changes as you go higher. The warmth of the forest floor gives way to a cooler, thinner air, and by the time you push open the door, you are no longer entirely part of the world you left below. The first thing you notice is the sky. Not through a window, but through the ceiling itself, a vast dome of reinforced glass that curves above everything, catching the last bruised colors of evening or the full and merciless brightness of noon depending on when you arrive. At night, and this is when the cabin reveals its true nature, the dome becomes a portal, every constellation sharp and unhurried above you, the Milky Way spreading across the glass like something spilled and left to dry across a dark table. The furniture floats. That is the only word for it. Beds and chairs suspended from the internal branches of the tree by cables of braided steel, anchored in the oldest and thickest wood, so that when you lie down, you do not rest on the floor of the world, you rest above it, barely held, gently swaying in whatever wind finds its way up here. There is technology in this cabin, but you would not know it unless you went looking. Solar panels are buried between leaf clusters on the outer canopy, power drawn quietly from the sun without disrupting a single natural surface. The internet is faster up here than in most cities, which feels like a strange joke played by the forest. And yet, for the writer, the astronomer, the one who needs to think without interruption, this is the point. The world is still happening, you can reach it if you want, but you have chosen height, and height has chosen clarity. There is a walkway. It extends from the trunk like a promontory, a narrow passage of glass and steel that juts out into open air, nothing beneath it but the slow descent of the forest, mist rolling between the trunks far below. When you stand on it in the early morning, fog surrounds you completely, and for a moment you are nowhere, suspended between the visible and the invisible, between the tree that holds you and the sky that calls. This cabin is for those who need to see further than their own lives, who need altitude not just in body but in mind. The second cabin does not ask you to climb. It asks you to enter. There is a door set into the base of a fig tree so wide that 3 people stretching their arms could not encircle it. The roots rise around it like the buttresses of a cathedral, and the bark is ancient and ridged and dark, stained by decades of rain and the slow press of seasons. Inside, the first thing is the smell. Resin, earth, something green and alive that has no name in any language you have learned. The living wood of the tree is part of the wall itself, not cut, not shaped beyond what was necessary, but accepted as it was, curved and breathing and warm to the touch. This is the eco-artisan refuge. And it was not built so much as it was listened to. Every room follows the shape the tree already offered. A natural hollow becomes the sleeping alcove. The curve of a root becomes a bench. The place where 2 branches diverged inside the heartwood becomes the threshold between the sitting area and the small kitchen carved into a shelf of compressed wood. The staircase is the tree itself, steps cut carefully into the inner surface of the trunk, spiraling upward in the exact rhythm that wood grows, slowly, circling, never rushing toward any destination. The grain of the wood beneath your hand as you climb is a record of every year this tree has lived, every drought, every abundance, every season that was hard and every one that was generous. The light inside this cabin is something you will not find in any building made by human hands alone. Claraboyas have been placed wherever the canopy allowed, and the sunlight that falls through them has already passed through leaves, so it arrives inside broken into pieces, shifting and slow, moving across the floor and walls as the branches move outside. This is what the Japanese call kamaribi, that dappled, breathing light that comes when sun and leaf are in conversation, and inside this cabin, you are always in the middle of that conversation. At night, the lighting embedded in the natural fissures of the wood glows warm and low, amber and rust, the color of embers before they go dark. You do not feel indoors, you feel inside something. There is a bath carved into the heartwood of the tree itself. A deep basin shaped by tools guided by patience, filled with water captured from the rain and filtered through layers of stone and charcoal until it is clear and cold and pure. To lie in it is to understand something about surrender, about allowing the tree to hold you the same way it holds the birds in its canopy and the lichen on its bark, without condition. This cabin is for those who have forgotten what rest actually feels like, who need to be reminded that comfort does not require edges. The third cabin is below. You would almost miss it if you did not know to look, because the entrance is between the roots, a passage of dark stone and living wood that seems more like a gateway than a door, and once you cross it, the sounds of the forest above become distant, muffled, replaced by a silence so complete it has texture. This is the basalt and root fortress. The walls here are a collaboration between the tree and the earth, volcanic stone cut and shaped by some old geological patience, pressed against and woven through with roots as thick as pillars, dark and curved and smooth. The effect is neither natural nor constructed. It is something older than either category, something that feels like it was always here, waiting beneath the soil until someone finally dug far enough to find it. The furniture is heavy. Solid dark wood, chairs with curved backs and arms worn smooth by years of use, tables built to last beyond anyone's lifetime. Tapestries hang against the stone and muffle the cold that would otherwise seep in from the rock, and in the center of the main room, a fireplace burns without apology, its chimney ascending through a natural cavity that runs up through the heart of the tree all the way to the canopy, so that the smoke disappears through the branches high above like breath rising in winter air. The windows are set at ground level, which means that from inside, you look out at the forest floor, at a perspective almost no one takes the time to experience, the base of things, the root level, the world as seen by moss and beetle, and the slowly threading mycelium beneath the soil. At dusk, certain species of fungi along the roots begin to glow, a cold and blue-white bioluminescence that needs no electricity and obeys no timer. It simply appears, because the forest has its own rhythm, and down here, that rhythm is undeniable. There is a passageway, hidden behind a hanging tapestry, between two roots that arch together like the frame of a door. It leads downward through packed earth and stone into a cellar that has never been anything but perfectly cool. The temperature here is kept constant not by any machine but by the depth of the ground itself, by the thermal mass of rock and soil that does not hurry through seasons the way the surface does. Bottles of wine rest in the dark, aged by geology and silence. This cabin is for those who need to go inward, not just in space but in self, who find that the deeper they go into the earth the closer they come to something they had been searching for at the surface for a very long time. 3 trees, 3 cabins, 3 entirely different ways of being alive in a forest. One reaches for the sky and refuses to stop. One grows around you the way a living thing grows, slowly and without demand, and one pulls you downward into the earth and asks you to be still. They are not for the same person, or perhaps they are each for the same person at different moments in the same life, because there are times when we need height, and times when we need warmth, and times when what we need most is to descend, to go quiet, to let the stone and the root and the dark take the weight of everything we have been carrying. The trees that hold these places are older than any building you have ever entered, older than most cities, older than most of the stories you have been told about the world. And they are still growing. Which means that if you were to return in 10 years, or 50, or 100, the cabins would have shifted slightly, the roots would have pressed further into the stone, the branches would have grown new angles, the glass in the dome above the observatory would catch a slightly different portion of the sky. The trees do not care about the cabins. Not exactly. But they allow them, and in a forest that has survived everything the centuries have thrown at it, being allowed is a form of embrace. So if you find yourself at the base of a very old tree someday, and you notice a door that you are almost certain was not there before, pay attention. It may be waiting for you.